watu bado hawajaje.
Can you see my screen? I think it's still low.
Kwa kuna akaunti tutatengeneza leo. Kodi kibali.
Okay, one sec. I'll try restarting Discord.
All right, then let me try sharing my screen while Serena fixes her problem. Can you guys see my screen? I'm not sure. I think it's sharing right now, but I'm not sure if everyone can see it. Oh, you can see it. All right. Well, today, we're going to be signing up for Coding Bat. So if you just search for Coding Bat on your web browser, all right, let me make sure that Ariel's is joined first. Okay, we could start. Well, go ahead and open up your web browser, search up Coding Bat. This is the website that we'll be using to practice our Python. So just click on this. I could also just send this link in our general chat if that's easier. But if you could either click on the link I sent on Discord or just search up Coding Bat on your web browser. Pretty simple. And it will lead you to this page. And we're going to be going, basically, these are some problems. As you can see over here, there are some problems that are Python related. And this is how we'll be learning and developing our Python basic skills. So what we want to do is, if you guys could see where my mouse is hovering over, it says create an account. And then here, use the email that you have, and then create a password. And then after that, all you want to do is just click create account. And that's pretty much it. And let me know if I need to repeat any steps. And then after that, Serena will just take over. All right.
Can take your time making your accounts and just let us know when you're done.
Yeah, and then let me
let
know
me
if
try.
you need me to repeat any steps.
Yeah, let me try screen sharing just to see if it works. Okay,
Does it
it
work?
works now. Yeah, it works.
All right. Then I can stop my screen share, or should I? Already created. All right. Then let me stop my screen share, and then Serena will lead.
Okay. Was everyone able to make an account?
What do you do? Yeah, but ingia, alafu pale upande wa kulia kwa juu unasimamia create. Au umeshatengeneza? Sasa Discord mwingine ina right, unaambiwa ukumbuke Frankie.
Okay, so we'll just wait a few more minutes so you can continue to let us know in the chat when you're done making an account, if you're still making it.
Ama akaunti yako ya Discord niangalie kama
Okay, since a lot of people have made accounts, I think we'll go ahead and get started and they can follow along to the exam. Okay, so you guys can open warmup1, sleep in, and we'll start with this problem. So it says that the parameter, as we learned yesterday in functions, you can get parameters inside the function. So it's what is like given, like here, false and false. So if the parameter weekday is true, that means it's a weekday. And if the parameter vacation is true, that means we're on vacation. So we want to sleep in if it's not a weekday or if we're on vacation. And if we sleep in, then we'll return true. So we want the function to only return true if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. So we can solve this problem by using an if statement. So like we learned, we want it to only return true if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. So we start with if, and since we want it to be not on a weekday, you say not. And then you can use the parameter name, which is weekday. So if not weekday is true, then it'll go into this if statement. But we also want it if we're on vacation. So it can either be it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. It doesn't need to be both. So we can use or. And then we can write vacation, because vacation needs to be true in order for this if statement to be true. So if it's not a weekday or vacation, then it says that we want to return true. So we can return true. And then we want to write an else statement so that if it doesn't go in here, then we want it to return false. So if you see weekday is false and vacation is false, then since if you do not false, it will become true because you're flipping it. And then so that means that this if statement would be true and you would return true, even though that vacation is false. On the other hand here, when you have true for not weekday, or for your weekday parameter, not weekday would be false and vacation would also be false. So your overall answer, it will not go in the if statement and it will go to else, so it'll return false. And here, not weekday is false, but vacation is true, so it will go in the if statement and return true. So once you're done with your code, you can press the go and you'll be able to see if all your answers were passed. So if all of the answers are green here, that means that, and it says all correct, that means that you got them all right. So you guys can do it and send it in the chat when you're done. And also, if you have any questions, like usual, you can post it on Discord. You can ask any questions you have. Okay, was everyone able to solve this problem? Or do you guys need more time? So we'll move on to the next problem. Okay, our next problem is called Monkey Trouble. So we have two monkeys, A and B, and we're given the parameters A smile and B smile, and they indicate if they are smiling. So if they are smiling, it's going to be true, and if they're not smiling, it's going to be false. So we're in trouble if both of them are smiling, so both of them are true, or if neither of them are smiling, which means that both of them are false. So we want to return true if we are in trouble. So we're going to use if statements again. So first, it's going to be in trouble if they're both smiling. So if A smile and B smile are both true, then we're going to return true. So that's one case when both of them are smiling. They're in trouble. And then we also want one for when both of them are not smiling. So if A smile is not true, so we can do that as not A smile and not B smile. Then they're in trouble because both of them are not smiling. So we'll also return true. So we want to, instead of using elif, we're going to use if because we want, if both of them are true, then we want it to go here. But then we also want to check if this was false. We still want to check if both of them are not true. And then after that, we can return false. So whatever doesn't go in the if statement, it will come here and it will return false. And if we run that, you should get them correct. So you guys can solve this example as well and let us know in the chat. And you can also ask questions if you have any. Do you guys need more time to work on it, or should we? Was everyone able to complete the example? Okay. So we can move on to our next problem. Okay, so this problem is called sum double. And this time, as our parameters, we're giving two int values, so two whole numbers, and we're going to return their sum. If the two numbers that we are given, the parameters, are the same, then we're going to return double their sum. So either way, we're going to have to either return the sum or double the sum. So we'll need to calculate the sum in both cases. So I'll make that as a variable. So I can make a variable called sum and have it contain a plus b. And then since if the two values are the same, then we want to double the sum. We want to check if the two values are the same. So we can do if A equals B. And remember, you need two equal signs when you're comparing if they're equal. And if that's true, then you want to double the sum. So you can do sum equals sum times 2. But there's also a shortcut that's also the same as this. You can just, instead of this, you can just do sum times equals 2. And it will be the same thing as sum equals sum times 2. And then here we want to return the sum outside of the if statement, because if it's not the same, then it won't go in here. So it'll just be the sum how they want it. But if it is the same, then it'll go here and the sum will now be updated to have double the sum. So we will just return sum. And if you run that, that should work as well. So you guys can go ahead and try this example. And if you have any questions, you can ask as well. You guys need more time to finish this example? Or are you ready to move on? Okay, I think I will move on. So our next example is diff 21. So when we're given an integer called n. So this problem we only have one parameter, and we return the absolute difference between n and 21. And if n is over 21, then we'll return double the absolute difference. So first, we want to check if n is under or over 21. So if n is less than equal to 21, that means that we'll just return the absolute difference between n and 21. So that means that we can just do return and then 21 minus n, because n is less than 21. So if you do 21 minus n, it will be a positive number, and so it will be the absolute value. And then if it's not less than or equal to 21, that means that it is over 21. So instead of saying if n is greater than 21, we can just do else. And for this one, we'll return double the absolute difference. So n is greater than 21, so to make it absolute value, you have to do n minus 21 to make it positive, since n is greater than 21. And then we want to multiply that by 2 to return the double of the absolute difference. And we can run this, and it should be correct. So you guys can try this example as well. And like always, you guys can ask any questions if you have any. Okay, can we continue to the next example? Okay. So our next example is called Parrot Trouble, and we have a loud talking parrot. The hour parameter is the current hour time in the range from 0 to 23. We are in trouble if the parrot is talking and the hour is before 7 or after 20. So we return true if we are in trouble. So first I'll start with defining the function. So Parrot Trouble. And our parameters are talking and hour. So we're in trouble if the parrot is talking. So first we want to check if the parrot is talking. So if we do if talking, if that is true, it will go inside the if statement. So if talking is true, it will go inside here. And since it's we have to get this as true, but we also need the hour to be before 7 or after 20. So we want to check inside this if statement, another if statement if hour is less than 7, or because this one, it can be either hour is before 7 or it can be hour is after 20. So we can check if hour is greater than 20 to see if it's after. And if that is also correct, then we're gonna return true. If it doesn't go in here, then we can return false outside of the if statements. Because it's only true if talking is true and this if statement of hours less than 7 or hours greater than 20 is true. So since both of them have to be true, we can use a nested if and make sure that both of these parameters are true. And then we can submit our answer, and you guys can also try this example. Oh, so Justin asked, why are we defining a function in our first line but not calling it? So actually in this coding bat, we only need to complete the function for it to be able to run. But if you do it on VS Code, then you'll need to call it. But since we're doing it on CodingBat, they have it so that if you just define the function and finish the function, then they will automatically check it for you and see if the function is correct. So that's only on CodingBat. It's like this where you wouldn't need to print out the function or call the function somewhere else. Okay, you guys can let me know if you guys need more time. But otherwise, I think we can continue to the next example. So this is going to be our last example on this one, and you guys will have the rest of warm-up 1 for homework. So this one is makes 10, and we're given two integers, a and b as parameters, and we want to return true if one of them is 10 or if their sum is 10. That means that we return true if a is equal to 10, or if b is equal to 10, or if a plus b is equal to 10. So we can write that in our code as an if statement. So if a is equal to 10, or if b is equal to 10, or a plus b is equal to 10. And remember, when you're comparing, you should use two equal signs to check if they're equal. And if these are true, so if one of them is 10 or if their sum is 10, then we want to return true. And then otherwise, we'll return false. Okay, so you guys can try this example as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because the rest will be given as homework. Okay, so we'll do the rest as homework, and then we'll go on and we will go over lists. Okay. Okay, so Python has lists which are used to store multiple items in a single variable. So we can put any like type of values into one variable using a list. So we use a bracket, and then you can put like string values or integer values or float values. So that if you, for example, sorry, you just slow. For example, we have a list that has apple, banana, cherry, and if we print it, I'll try it on our online compiler. One second. Sorry, my computer. One sec. Okay, so I'll send a link to the online compiler again in the chat. Okay. So if I run this, then you'll see that it prints out apple, banana, cherry. All of these are able to be printed out if you put it in a list. So in lists, you can change the values, and so when you put them inside a list, they are put in the order you added them, and so that you can call individual values that you want, and you're allowed to change what's in each position, and you can also have the same value. So you can have, instead of um, apple, banana, cherry, you can also add you can add apple again. And then if you run that, it will also have apple. So if you see that you can still print out the same value twice in a list. So you can still have two of the same thing. Yeah, so if you add something new to a list, it will be added at the end of the list. And we just did duplicates. And there's a function called len, which is it can find the length of the list. Sort of like doing finding the length of a string. We can see how many values are in this list. So if we do this, you put len and then you put parentheses around the list. And if you run that, you'll see that it's 4 because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 items in this list. If I change it, so I can delete this again and run it, it should say 3 now. Yes. So like I mentioned before, you can have the items inside your list can be any different data type. So here we have strings and we have integers and we have booleans. So all of these lists work. So we can try it for ourselves. So you guys can take this list and then you can print list 1. And then you can also print list 2 and list 3. And if you do that, you can see that you can print out all the lists, even though they all have different types. And they're in the format of this is a string, these are integers, and these are booleans. And you can also use the length function for all of these and see the length of each list. So the length function will always return an integer because the number of items in your list is always going to be a number. So you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, so it prints out 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in your list, so it prints out 5. And 1, 2, 3 items in list 3, so it prints out 3. So even though they all have different data types, the length function will always just return how many items are in your list. And you can also have one list and it has many different data types in it. So we can see this one. So if you run this list, you can see that it comes out like a regular list that we just had seen in our examples. So you can see that this is a string, this is an int, this is a boolean, this is an integer, and this is a string. But they're all able to be inside one list. So you don't always have to separate them based on their data type. You can put them all in one. Now, like we learned, there's the type function, and if you do the type of a list, then it will come up as list. So back here, if we print the type of list 1, you will get that it's in the class list. So even though these are string, integer, Boolean values, it's all items inside of a list. So the type of list 1, the variable list 1 is going to be list. So even if all the values inside the list are string values, instead of type string, it's going to be type list. So I can show you guys with this one. So you can see that even though you have a list of only strings, so maybe you might think that if you do type of my list, it will return string. It will actually be list because it's under brackets in a list. Oh, and another note, when you have different values in a list, you separate them using commas. Okay, so you can also use a list constructor when you're creating a new list. So if you do this, then you want to put it under double round brackets instead of the square brackets that we used when defining a list, just like you would define a variable. So in this one, you actually have to write list and you use double parentheses to initialize the list. So it will be the same as before. It's still a list. It'll say apple, banana, cherry. But this is just another way you can make a list. So yeah, there's other types of Python collections. A list is just one of them, and we'll also be learning about the other ones later as well. So we're going to learn how you can get just an individual item inside of a list. So if you look at this example, if you want to print banana, then you will first type list and you'll put square brackets, and inside of that you'll put a number, and that is the index of the item inside your list. So how this works is that you start counting from 0. So apple would be index 0, and banana would be index 1, and cherry would be index 2. So even though the length is 1, 2, 3, your index will actually start at 0. So if I print this list and I use square brackets and I put 1, it will actually print banana. And we can check that here. Yeah. So you can print them out individually through this. So if I do 0, it'll print out banana or apple. You'll see that it runs apple. And then if I do 2, it should be cherry. So remember that you can access the individual items by putting after the variable name, you can just put square brackets and the index number. If you just want to print everything out in the list, then you can just put the variable name. So there's also something called negative indexing, which means that you're finding something from the end. So you count from the end when you do negative indexing. So you'll put a negative number. And -1 means that it's the very last value. And -2 would be the second last one, and etc. until it reaches the end of the array. So cherry would be -1 because it's from the end. So I can try that. If you run it, oh wait, oh sorry, I wrote -2. I meant -1. If you write -1, it will be cherry. And then the second from the last is going to be -2. So if I do -2, I should get banana. And then lastly, if I do -3, it should be apple. So you can notice that you can either do, so for example, when you print out apple, there's 2 ways. So you can do this list and you can do it regular index. So it'll be apple will be 0. But you can also do negative indexing and apple will be -3. So if we print these out, they should both print apple. So there are 2 ways to access the individual items in the array. So instead of, if you want to print out multiple values in your list, you can actually do a range of indexes instead of just doing one at a time. So the way you do that is you separate it with a semicolon or a colon. And first you put where you want it to start. So you want it to start at apple, then you can start index 0. And if you want it to end, if you only want apple and banana to print out, then you'll put the index of, so apple is index 0, banana is 1, and cherry is 2. But if we wanted to only print these 2 out, you actually put 2, index 2, because 2 will not print out. It's exclusive, so it will only print out from 0 to 1 if you put 2 in the semicolon. So if you run this, you'll see that it'll get apple and banana. If I wanted to also include cherry, then I can put 3, because it will print out from 0, 1, and 2. So 0, 1, and 2. So if I run that, I'll get apple, banana, and cherry. So you can switch around both of these indexes. So if you don't want to start it at 0, you can also start it at 1. And so that means that it'll print out banana, which is index 1, and then it'll go to index 2 because 3 is not included. So index 2 is cherry, so it should print out banana and cherry. Okay, so there's also when you do indexes with a range, if you want it to, like earlier we did before, 0 to 3, so it will do apple, banana, cherry. Or let's just say 2. If you want it to be apple and banana, we can do 0 to 2, like I mentioned before, and it should print out apple and banana. But there's also a shorter way to do it. So you can start. So if you know that you want to start at 0, which is the very beginning, you can actually, you don't need to put the 0 and you can just have the end value. So if you do that, then this already means it'll start from 0. So it should also print out apple and banana, even though you didn't put a 0 in the front. You can also do that for the back. So if you want it to start from 1, which is banana, and you want it to also print out cherry, so you want to print out all the rest that's on the list, then you don't need to put something in the back, and it automatically knows that it's going to be all the way to the end. So if you run that, it's going to be banana, cherry, even though you didn't put the number 3 at your index at the end. And if you want to print out the whole array, you can also just put a colon and it will print out all 3 values. So this would be the same as putting a colon and no indexes is the same as printing it out without listing an index. Because it will also run your full value. So like earlier with the range, you can also do negative ranges. So we can try this. In this example, you'll start from -4, so we count from the back. So this is -1, -2, -3, and -4. So orange is going to be -4, so that will be the first thing printed out, and it will go to -1, but -1 is not included. So it will go from orange, kiwi, and melon, which is because melon is -2. So if we print this, we can see that it does print out orange, kiwi, and melon. So you want to remember when we do a range of indexes that the last value does not count. It's exclusive. So if you put -1, it will not do -1. If you do -2, it will only be orange and kiwi because index of -2 will not count. So you can see that here. So we've been using if statements, and there's actually a way to check if an item is in your list by using the in keyword. So you can just say if, and then whatever you want to check if is in the list is in, and then you put the name of your list, and then you can do yes, and then you can do whatever you want inside your if statement. So most of these are very similar to the string methods that we learned. Values, you want to make sure to put it in square brackets as well. Index 1 and 2 will change, so 0, 1, 2. So banana and cherry will change to blackcurrant and watermelon when we do this, when we change it with the range. So you can see that it changed. And if you insert more items than you replace, then they will be inserted where you put it, and the remaining items will move so that they will update. So if we do this one, and run it. And you can see that it actually added a value because you mentioned 1 and 2, or 1 to 2, which is actually just index 1 because index 2 is not included. But you gave 2 values. So it will replace banana with blackcurrant, and then it will just add watermelon after blackcurrant. So you can see that blackcurrant and then watermelon comes into the list. So it will add it at the same place and just move the other values down. So you notice that cherry used to be index 3 or index 2, 0, 1, 2, but now it's become index 3. And there's also the opposite case when you put in less items than you say you're going to replace. So even though I said that I was going to change the values of index 1 and 2, I only put in one value. So it will just replace watermelon or banana with watermelon, and then the other values will be omitted because they will be replaced with because you did not put anything to replace it with. It will just be deleted. So now cherry is out of that list. So another thing that you can do, instead of changing what's already there, you can actually insert a new item into your list after you have made it. So if you use the insert function, you can put the index you want to add your new item, and then you put the actual item you want to add after. So that means that index 2, 0, 1, 2, it will actually add watermelon. So it will add watermelon right here, and the value that was already at index 2 will be changed backwards. So cherry used to be index 2, but since we added watermelon to index 2, cherry will now be pushed back and it will be index 3. Okay, so we just learned the insert method, which actually you can insert it wherever you want in the list. But if you just want to add a value at the very end of the list, you can actually just use the append method. So then, oops. Yeah, I'll just change it. So instead of insert, if you use append, that means at the very end of your list, watermelon will be added. So it will be apple, banana, cherry, and watermelon. It will just add to the very end of your list. Okay. Okay, so sorry, this is not my way.
Okay. Okay, so Python list, to add an item, you use append. So you have a list here. This list is equal to three strings here: apple, banana, and cherry. If you do this list dot append the string orange, then it adds it to the end of the list at the end. So after cherry, and printing it will print the list including the orange at the end. So as you can see, the original list consisted of apple, banana, and cherry, but after we appended the orange, which means that we added the string orange to the end of the list, you can see that it's printed in the result. So things to note here are using append adds it to the end of the list. So the last index plus one. Um, yeah, and then it updates the original list. So you don't do something like you don't do this. It just updates the original list. Okay, so append adds an item to the end of the list, but if we want to add something to a specified index, then we use the insert attribute, the method. So if we want to add orange, not to the end of the list, but at a specified index, so in this case, index one, um, you use the index method. Okay, so using this line, I inserted the string orange into this list at index one. So remember how computers come from index zero? So the string apple is currently in index zero, and bananas is in index one. So we're trying to insert the string orange into index one. Uh, So in the result, we can see that orange is actually added at index one. So apple is index zero, one, two, three. So it works. So the string orange is inserted at index one. So just to recap, if you want to add something to the end of the list, you use append. And if you want to insert something at a specified index, you want to use the insert method. You can also add um, something to the end of the list using insert by using the last index plus one. Um, but it's just generally easier to use append if you want to add it to the end of the list. Okay, so let's say that you have two lists. So in this case, you have this list, and you also have tropical, which is another list. Um, and let's say you want to append the items in one list into another list. So in this case, you want to include three more fruits into this list, and we can do that by using the extend method. So as you can see, we started with three items in this list, which are apple, banana, and cherry. And we declare another list called tropical that contains mango, pineapple, and papaya. And over here, we added the items in tropical into this list. So we added all the items inside tropical into this list we have over here using the extend method. So notice how this list is before the extend. This list extend. So this means that you're actually editing this list instead of tropical. And you have tropical over here. So if you wanted to add this list into tropical instead of the other way around, then you would switch these two values. And notice how we print this list because that's the list that was edited. So this list is the one that is the list that was edited to include the items in tropical using the extend method. Okay, so let's say you have an original list, call it this list, and you have like an iterable. So it can be like another list or like a tuple or anything that's iterable. So in this case, we have this list that contains apple, banana, and cherry, and we have a tuple here with kiwi and orange. And let's say we want to add these um, the items in the tuple into this list. Then we can also use the extend method that we discussed, and it still works. So so we have the original list here with apple, banana, and cherry, and we want to add the items in this tuple, so kiwi and orange, into this list. Um, so like we did with the previous example, which is extending a second list into the first list. You can also extend um, like any iterable, so like a tuple, because you can iterate through it. Like it has multiple items that you can loop through. So like so if you do like 4x and a variable, then it loops through it. So when you do this, it loops through it twice. So x equals kiwi for the first time and orange the second time. So that's what an iterable is. You can loop through it. So since this variable is loopable, you can loop through it. You can use the extend method to add these items inside this list. So we can print it here, and we get the result we want. Notice how the items are added in order. So you have this original order: apple, banana, and cherry, and the extend method it adds it to the end of the array. I mean the list. So kiwi would be index 3, and orange would be index 4. So it adds it to the end of the list. If you guys have questions, you guys can type in the chat. I guess we can move on. So we learned how to add list items into a list. Now we're gonna learn how to remove a specified item. So over here you have a list called this list with apple, banana, and cherry. sometimes you want to remove something from a list. Like in this case, you want to remove the string banana from this list, and you do it by using the remove method. So this list remove the string banana. Um, it removes the string banana from the list. So if you print this list, um, you're left with apple and cherry because you got rid of banana. Um, and if you try to remove something that's not in this list or the list that you specified, then it returns an error because it's not in list. So that's important to know. So if you know what the item is called, like what the item is that you want to remove, then you use the remove method. But what if you don't know like the item itself? What if you don't know like um that you want to remove banana, but what if you just know that you want to remove an item at a specified index, so like index 1. So what if you want to remove index 1, but you don't know that it's banana? Uh, then you use the pop function, pop method. So how this method works is you pass an integer that specifies the index of the item in the list that you want to remove. So in this case, we're trying to remove um, the item at index 1. So remember how computers start from 0 for indexing? So 0, 1, 2. So 1 would be banana in this case. So when we run this code, then we're just left with apple and cherry. So we used the pop method to remove index 1, which is banana in this case. Um, so yeah. So just a recap, if you know what the item is that you want to remove, um, no matter what the index is, uh, you use the remove method. But sometimes you want to remove something, but you don't know like what the item is, right? So you don't know that you want to remove banana, but you do know that it's it's at index 1. So if you know the index that of the item that you want to remove, then use the pop method. Um, but if you know the item that you want to remove, the item, you use the remove method. Um, and what if you don't specify an index using the pop function? Then it defaults to the last item. Um, so in this case, so I didn't specify an index here, which I normally would. So if I specify 1, then that gets rid of banana because that's at index 1. But what if I don't specify a number? What if I don't pass a number? Oops. Then it removes the last item. So since I didn't specify an index, it defaults to removing the last item in the list. So basically, it's the same as the last index. So it's the same as popping 2 because um, index 2 is the last item in this list. So if you don't specify an index, then it's the same as removing the last item. And to remove an item, you can also use the del keyword instead of using pop. Um, So before I can. I'll just go over this and then end it. So we learned how to remove an item from given an index, right? So index 0, which is Apple. So running this line of code returns this output over here because it removes the first index. I mean the 0th index, which is the first item. So instead of doing this list of pop 0, you can also do del. It's a keyword, del space, this list, and brackets 0. So this does the exact same thing as this. Yeah, so it's just another way to write it. Reference. So you can do any number. Oops. And it works the same. So we can end it here since we have to stop.
Okay, so today's homework, you guys can finish warmup 1, which is the one that we did some of together today. And then you guys can also do logic 1 and string 1 and list 1 on CodingBat. And I'll post it on the homework channel again as well. And even though we weren't able to finish lists, you guys should be able to do the CodingBat problems. So if there's any confusion or you guys need some help, just remember to send a message on Discord. And otherwise, we're done for today. Yeah. Thank you guys.